About 2,400 years ago, the wisest man in Athens warned his city about a dangerous new technology. It would weaken the human mind, he said. It would ruin our memory. It would fill us with the appearance of wisdom instead of the real thing. People would seem to know a great deal while actually knowing nothing at all. Hello everyone, this is Dr. Gordon Jones, author of the book series Think and Live Rich. This is the first podcast of our series that will be taken directly from the book. But today is not that day. Today, I want to talk about something that I'm seeing in the discussions of the emergence of AI into our lives. My thought is how every innovation we first feared has, in fact, made us better as a species. The wise man I was talking about was the philosopher Socrates. And the dangerous technology was not AI. It was writing. Now, here's the part I love. The only reason we know Socrates feared writing is that somebody wrote it down. His student Plato recorded the warning. The very thing that he was afraid of is the only reason his fear survives at all today. It would be easy to stand up here and laugh at him, but I want to do the opposite, because Socrates wasn't a fool. His fear was sincere and reasonable. If all you'd ever known was a world held together by human memory, the idea of outsourcing it to little marks on a page would feel like losing something essential about being human. And that's the unsettling part, because we've been making that exact same prediction, sincere, reasonable, and wrong, for 20th century. We made it about the printing press, about the factory, about the automobile, and about the assembly line. We're making it again right now in this room about the device in your pocket. So here's what I want to show you in the next 20 minutes. Every single time we invent something that changes how we live, we predict it will diminish us. And every single time, it expands us instead. More prosperity, more kinds of work, and as I'll show you, more of us alive than the world before could have ever held. I want to show you why that keeps happening, and why it's about to happen again, and what it asks of you. You see, there's a rhythm to it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It goes something like this. Innovation stirs panic, but leads to flourishing. 3 beats, every time, every cycle. Let me play it for you in a few examples. The printing press. After writing stirred Socrates, the printing press scarred the scribes, the monks who'd spent their lives copying books by hand. They saw the obsolescence of their craft. But it was the authorities that saw something even scarier. Ideas they couldn't control, thoughts spreading faster than they could stop them. And the result? Literacy did not shrink the world of words, it exploded it. Publishing, journalism, and mass education. Entire industries employing millions that simply could have not existed before the Gutenberg press. The power loom. In England, weavers watched machines arrive that could do in hours what took them days. Some of them, called the Luddites, picked up hammers and smashed those machines. And I want to be honest with you, because their story matters later. Those specific weavers often suffered terribly. But the textile work overall didn't vanish. As cloth got cheaper, people bought more of it, and employment in the industry grew. The automobile. Get a horse! That was the heckle of blacksmiths, stable hands, carriage makers, and a whole world of work fearing displacement. But in its place came one of the largest engines of employment in human history. Factories, mechanics, gas stations, motel, road crews, the entire shape of the modern landscape. The ATM. This is my favorite, because one of my summer jobs was as a bank teller. Everyone knew how this one would end. The cash machine would obviously eliminate the need for the bank teller. But instead, what happened? The number of tellers has gone up over the past 40 years. Why? because once a branch was cheaper to run, banks opened more branches, and the teller stopped counting cash and started serving customers. The machine did not replace the human. It changed what the human was for. You feel it now, don't you? The rhythm. Innovation, panic, flourishing. You can almost call the next one, I'm sure. But every example I've given you so far is about your work, your job, your paycheck. Now I want to give you one that's about your life. For 300,000 years, there were never more than a few 100 million human beings on this entire planet. Draw the line of human population across history and it's flat. Flat through the pharaohs, flat through Rome, flat through the Middle Ages, almost nothing comparatively. And then, in about 2 centuries, a blink of an eye in the timeline of humanity, we went from 1 billion people to more than 8 billion today. No matter what you think about its effects, good or bad, it took 300,000 years to reach the first billion, and barely 200 to reach the next 7 billion. What happened in those 200 years? We learned to pull fertilizer out of thin air, a chemistry breakthrough that by itself feeds roughly half the people alive today. We figured out why doctors should wash their hands. We invented vaccines, sanitation, and we took a world where half of all the children died before they grew up, and we gave those children a future. Let's take New York City, for example. In the early 1900s, there were over 100,000 horses in the city, serving 3.5 million residents. Every day, every single day, 2.5 million pounds of manure was dropped on the streets and 60,000 gallons of urine into the gutters. As soon as the automobile was mass-produced by Ford, those horses were gone in a couple of decades, leading to clean water supplies, reduced fly infestations, and no more having to carve up and dispose of 15,000 horses that died on the streets that year. To this point, there have always been people who said the planet is too full. It can't handle the masses. 200 years ago, a well-known clergyman named Thomas Malthus predicted with mathematics that the human population would outrun the food supply and we would starve. And he was certain. Paul Ehrlich, who in 1968 also predicted hundreds of millions would die of famine in the 1970s and 80s. He was also certain and wrong. They were both wrong for the same reason. They made the oldest mistake there is. They thought the pie was fixed. Amazingly, half the people alive today are so directly because of the discoveries most of us can't even name. Human innovation didn't just give us jobs, it gave us each other. So why do we get it wrong the same way every single time? Underneath every one of these panics, Socrates, the Luddites, Malthus, there's one hidden assumption. It's the belief that there is only so much of a thing that matters. So much work, so much food, one fixed lump of it. And so the logic feels airtight. If a machine does the work's gone, subtracted from us forever. AI does 30% of the tasks we do today. So 30% of us are out of a job, right? It sounds like math and it feels obvious to those who are blind. But they all have been wrong every time for the past 2,500 years. Economists actually have a name for this mistake. It comes from how we think about jobs. They call it the lump of labor fallacy, or the belief that there's a fixed lump of work in the world. So any piece a machine takes is a piece that we humans lose. Here's the simple way I know to say it. The mistake is imagining work or food or wealth is a fixable pie, where every slice the machine eats is a slice stolen from your plate. But that is not what a pie of human effort is. The machine doesn't eat your slice. Instead, it bakes more pies. Cheaper goods put money in people's pockets, and that money creates new demand. And new demand creates new work. And innovation invents entire kinds of work that nobody in this room could have named a generation ago. There was no such thing as an app developer before computers. A wind turbine technician wouldn't exist without the need for electricity. A podcast producer wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the internet. Those slices didn't get redistributed, they got created. And notice how it actually works, because this is the key. The machine almost never takes your whole job. It takes some of your tasks. The teller kept the part that mattered, the human part, and let the machine count the cash. The accountant got the spreadsheet and stopped being a calculator and started being an advisor. The tool did not replace them. It amplified them and made them worth more. But I have to be honest with you here, or none of the rest of this is worth anything to you or me. A growing pie does not mean nobody gets hurt. The weaver who was displaced by the loom did not wake up the next morning in a wonderful new job. The total amount of work in the world isn't fixed. That's true. But the pain of the transition is very, very real. And it lands on specific people, in specific towns, at specific moments in their lives. Just look at Detroit today since the car manufacturers moved to the South. But the fallacy is believing the work disappears forever. The truth is that work transforms, and whether that transformation is humane, whether we catch the people it displaces, that's not automatic. That's a choice. Our choice. So far, I've told you what the innovation economy does. But you don't live in the economy. You live in your job. So let me tell you the single most useful thing I know about surviving one of these waves. And it has nothing to do with the machine or tech. It's a question. For that, let me tell you about the buggy whip. When the automobile arrived, it didn't just threaten the carriage makers, it threatened the people who made buggy whips, too. You know, the little leather whips used to drive a horse. The whip makers who survived were not the ones who asked, "How do I make a better whip?" They were the ones that expanded their horizons. There's an old idea from a Harvard professor named Theodore Levitt that explains exactly why the great American railroads declined. It wasn't because people stopped needing to travel. Demand for transportation had exploded. Instead, the railroads declined because they thought that they were in the railroad business, when they were really in the transportation business. So when the car and airplane arrived, the smart railroad companies saw opportunity in other areas of transportation, such as freight, as the use of railroads by people declined. The same for the buggy whip makers. When they realized that they were in the service industry, they figured out new ways to use the leather for other purposes, including becoming upholsterers for the auto industry. The question that saves you is not, what do I make? The question is, what need do I actually serve? The whip maker wasn't in the whip business. He was in the business of helping people move. I'll be honest, there are limits of this thinking. Knowing you're in transportation doesn't magically turn a leather worker into an automotive engineer. The point isn't a painless leap. The point is the posture. When you define yourself by the need that you serve instead of the thing that you produce, you can see the next wave coming instead of drowning in it. The teller who became a relationship banker did that. The accountant who became an advisor did that. Same move, every era. And now I have to talk about the thing that you've all been waiting for me to talk about, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, that's a lovely story, Gordon, but this time's different. And I'm not going to wave that away, because the serious version of that argument is the best question in this entire talk. Here it is. Every wave of innovation until now automated our muscle. The machine took the physical and routine work away, while we humans were able to climb up into our minds. Learning how to think, for example, how to make better judgments, expand our creativity, to innovate even more and express ourselves better, to the things only a human brain could do. So the difference this time is that artificial intelligence is automating the mind itself. So the question is fair, and it is frightening. If the machine climbs up to where we climbed, where do we go next? This is not a foolish fear. Don't let anyone tell you it is. So let me give you the most honest answer I have in 3 parts. First, humility. Every generation believed theirs was the exception. The weaver was certain this was the end. The teller was certain. Malthus was certain the food would run out. They were all completely sure, and the fixed apple pie logic failed every single time for 200 years. Now, that's not proof that we're safe, but it should make us deeply suspicious of our own certainty that this time, finally, the pattern breaks. Second, the reframe. Artificial intelligence is the most powerful pie-making machine that we've ever built. It doesn't just make one task cheaper, it hands a single person a capability that used to require an entire team. A person with an idea and no army, no budget, no engineering degree can now build, design, and create things that were impossible for one human being able to do just a decade ago. I know this because I'm one of them. The most valuable people in this new era will not be the ones who resist the tool. They'll be the ones who ask Levitt's question, what need do I serve? And then pick up the tool and meet that need. Third, the choice. Remember what I said about the weaver. The pie grew, but the transition was brutal for the people caught in it. The one thing history is not is automatic. The good transitions where people displaced landed somewhere better happened when we chose to build the bridge. Education, time, and financial support. A floor under people so that they could find their footing. So the optimism I'm offering you is not relax, it'll work out. The optimism is build on it yourself. We've done it before. We know how. We just have to choose to do it for ourselves. Now I want to take you back where we started, to Socrates, standing in Athens, afraid that writing would empty out the human mind. He was wrong. But think about how wrong he was. Writing didn't empty the human mind. Writing became the human mind. It lets us store our thoughts outside our own skulls. It lets one generation stand on the shoulders of the last and the next on theirs, across centuries, across oceans, across death itself. Writing is the reason we are the only species on Earth that gets smarter every single generation, without changing our biology at all. Every tool we ever feared became a new floor to stand on, and a higher place to reach from. The printing press didn't end us, it lifted us. The combustion engine didn't end us, it propelled us. The fertilizer and the vaccine didn't spare us, they filled this planet with billions of other lovely human lives that the old world could never have held. We're not the species that is about to be replaced by tools. We are the species lifted by them. We are the ones who have always taken the very thing we feared and turned it into the thing that lifted us higher. The machine in your pocket, or the one in the clouds, will not be the exception. If we choose to be the people we have always eventually become, the people who don't see the pie looks too small, we will be the people that go and bake more pies. Socrates was wrong about writing, not because the danger wasn't real, but because he forgot one thing we always do with our tools. We don't shrink to fit them, we grow to use them, and we always will. God created us to be creators. So go out and be that person.